Hey everyone, in this video you are going to learn how to write the story of your life. Memoirs. That's the topic on today's show. Hang on. Hey guys and gals, boys and girls, authors and author wannabes. Hope you're having a fantastic day. Tim Knox here, and today we are continuing our discussion of memoirs. You might have seen on a previous video, someone submitted the question, how should they write a memoir? And of course, if you go back and watch that video, you're going to see that my answer was, well, it depends on how interesting your life has been and what you are writing about. Because to be quite honest with you, most people, probably 99.999%, myself included, do not have a life that's going to entertain anyone. My life, as full and fun as it is, has always been somewhat boring. And you know what? That's just fine with me. But if you think you have a story that needs to be told, if there's something in your life that you would like to document that you think people would find interesting, if you've overcome adversity or injury, or you've come back from the depths of some kind of hell and you have a story to tell, or perhaps you're a public figure. Public figures always do memoirs because, gosh darn, they're so much more interesting than us normal people. But I'm gonna guess that if you're watching this video, you're not Beyonce or Donald Trump or someone like that. So what we're going to talk about is memoirs for normal people. And we're going to talk about whether or not you should write one. In fact, we did that in the other video. In this video, we're going to talk about how to actually go about the process. That sound good? Hold on. I got to wet my whistle here. If you are a frequent watcher of this program, you know I am never without my dog cup. Speaking of, I have 4 dogs in the office studio this morning, and they're not getting along. But I digress, as I so often do. So you have decided to write a memoir. Go back again, watch that other video to make sure that it's something that someone is going to want to read. And therein lies the crux. When you write a memoir, it is a deeply personal work, and you are basically opening up your life and bearing your soul to the reader. So again, once you decide, well, hey, I've got something worth reading, how do you go about it? Let's talk about the mechanics. You really write a memoir just like you do any other book. You sit down and you think about what is going to go in this book. What in my life was so fascinating, entertaining, interesting, dangerous, etc., that a reader is going to want to write or want to read about it. Remember in the other video, we talked about having to evoke emotions in a reader. Memoirs especially are very emotional books. You have to either entertain the reader, you have to be of interest to them, they may be fans of yours, you need to inspire them, and that's the big one. Most memoirs are meant to be books of inspiration, stories of inspiration, overcoming adversity, be it, the most popular topics are divorce, cancer or disease, abuse, all the way to the extreme, like an Elizabeth Smart who was kidnapped and held for hostage for so many years. So it really runs the gamut. So the first thing you need to do is sit down, be very honest with yourself, and ask yourself this question. What is it about my life that's been so darn interesting that people will want to read about it? It may be, again, that you've overcome something, some obstacle. To be quite blunt with you, it has to be more than just having an affliction or overcoming something. You have to come out the other side a stronger, better person with a moral, because sadly in our world there are lots of folks without arms and legs. There are lots of people in bad marriages. There are lots of people going through shitty divorces. Lots of people getting cancer. So as you're writing your, what makes this worth reading story, you have to ask yourself what makes it worth reading. Because if you're just going to write a book about, I had quite a normal life and then I got cancer and I beat it and now I have quite a normal life. I'm so happy that you beat it, but does that make it memoir worthy? Are people going to really want to read that? If you were a marathon runner who all of a sudden lost their leg to cancer and you came back and ran marathons with a prosthetic, that is a memorable. And therein, I think, is the thing. Memoirs have to be memorable and meaningful. meaning that the reader must get something out of that memoir to make it worth picking up. So, as always, I've made notes because my old brain doesn't work well without them. So, step one, sit down and put on paper or put on computer those events that you think are worthy of someone reading them. They are memoir worthy. It's somewhat like being sponge worthy on the old Seinfeld show. I've got dogs sniffing again. What are you doing? What are you doing? Come here. Come here. Pardon the break in programming, but this is what I live with. My memoir would be I took the dogs out. I fed the dogs. I petted the dogs. So what is the event? What is going to be the crux, the main plot point of your memoir? Is it a disease? Is it something you overcame? Is it something that you faced? Once you have that idea down, then you have to start crafting the story around it. Because a memoir, as we said on the previous video, a memoir has to be truthful. If you embellish or you lie or you add things that are not the truth, you do not have a true memoir. You have a fictionalized accounting of your life, a very different book, and one that could upset readers if you're not careful. Again, you might remember James Frey from a few years ago wrote this memoir about how he overcame drug abuse, and turns out most of it was just bullshit. So you've got your story. You've got to create your arc. Memoirs must have a beginning, a middle, and an end, because basically you're telling a story, although a true story. So the next question is, where will you start your memoir? Let's say you're writing a memoir about overcoming cancer. Are you going to start at the point where you're diagnosed, or are you going to start the book at the point where you have the cure, or where are you going to start? It really makes a difference. You don't want to go back and chronicle your entire life if the cancer hit when you were 50. Because chances are, up until that point, again, you probably had a normal, mundane life just like everyone else. So you have to decide the story arc. Is the story arc going to be from the moment you got the diagnosis to the moment you started treatment, to the moment where the treatment really affected your body, to the moment where you are cancer-free, and then you begin your life? Where do you start the memoir? The next question is, where do you end the memoir? If, per our example, does the memoir end on a happy note when you got a diagnosis from the doctor that you were free of cancer? Does it go on and follow you for a year or two? Where does the start? Just remember, a memoir is a book. You have to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And between the beginning and the end is when you document what is memorable, hence making it a memoir, which is, I think, French for memorable. How weird is that? So what is the story arc? What is memorable? Again, memorable but meaningful is the term that you need to put in your brain when you are writing. Also keep in mind why readers read memoirs. Primarily, they read them because they're written by famous people, politicians, or those folks. And those are people, their memoirs typically do not detail something they've overcome. They just detail their journey from where they were to where they are now and beyond. And those are the people, the 1%ers that do have the interesting life. The Donald Trumps, the Barack Obamas, to be politically correct, rock stars, actors, actresses. Bryan Cranston, my favorite actor, just came out with a memoir that chronicles his starting out very early and scratching and scraping to becoming a star at 50. So their story, their lives are so unusual that you can pack that in a memoir. Now, if Bryan Cranston overcame cancer and several bad divorces, that would be an extra special memoir, I guess. So keep in mind why they read it. As always, when you are writing a memoir or any book, have a plan, have an outline, know where you are going to start and where you are going to end, and then you fill it in and you write your memoir. Again, keep in mind, no embellishing, no adding things that weren't there. Do not Forrest Gump your memoir, as we say. You did not meet Bear Bryant or George Wallace. But that's it. And what I would do is I always start with a bullet point outline. I would sit down and say, okay, this is the event that is going to be the main crux of the story. Okay, I'm going to start here, I'm going to end here, and here are the bullet points of everything that's going to happen in between. Once you have that outline, sit down and give it a read, and you have to make the determination, is this something people will actually read? And if you watch these videos, you know that I am incredibly, brutally, ruthlessly honest when I tell you most memoirs, regardless of what you have done and what you have overcome, you probably are not going to sell. It is a very niche market, but you never know. And a lot of times I've seen folks write a memoir just for their own good. It is a cathartic, therapeutic, get it on paper kind of thing. And many do so knowing that the memoir will probably sell no copies other than friends and family, but you never know. If you go and look at Amazon now, there are ordinary, everyday people who have overcome extraordinary things, and they've written a memoir that was meaningful and memorable. Okay? I hope that was helpful. If you are thinking about writing a memoir, hey, do me a favor, drop it in the comments below. Let me know what you are thinking about writing. What about your life was so interesting that you think someone like me would want to read it? Also, don't forget, I don't always, some of the questions I get are just crazy. But if you have a question or comment, please leave it in the comments below. And if I use your question in a video, I will send you a digital copy of one of my books. And it's not a memoir. I have such a boring life. Like I said, my life revolves around dogs. So appreciate it. That's going to do it. Hey, if you enjoy the tips you get on this channel, do me a favor, click the subscribe button below. And if you click the little bell icon, out of the goodness of its heart, YouTube will let you know whenever I post a video, and I post these quite often. So that's going to do it. I've got a dog passed out in my lap. I think my work here is done. See you next time. Don't forget, this is the channel. Our goal, as always, is to help you become a better writer and a dog lover.